We wanted the pizza. Emily and I are both craving pizza today. We did not get the pizza. We're going to get the pizza on Sunday, Emily, hopefully, but that's our Club Hawthorne OTBs. A lot going on here on this Thursday afternoon at Hawthorne 8 races today. We do have overcast skies, but a fast main track, firm turf course. There's no more racing at Delaware Park today. They canceled due to weather. So the rains hit them there, but there's a lot of racing action going on. We're looking at a race from Saratoga right now, Horseshoe Indianapolis, Belterra. Woodbine in a little bit as well.
Correct,
So
yeah.
there's enough going on.
Absolutely, it's summer. Like, there's racing.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Quite a bit going on here. There's great racing this weekend as well, too. So before we jump into the Hawthorne card, we want to focus on the Grade 1 Haskell because you see the return of the Kentucky Derby champion here. And I want to say the return, it's the second start back because the horse ran in the Preakness. But Mage headlines the Haskell. The interesting thing about the Haskell, which goes as race number 12 on Saturday from Monmouth Park, Mage is not the morning line favorite. It's very rare that you see that with a Kentucky Derby winner not being the favorite, but that's going to be the case for Mage here in the Haskell.
Yeah, and he'll probably be a strong second choice in the race, just off the name notoriety, all thing, in there. But I think they've announced the connections. This is a prep. We're looking towards the Travers later on, get the race under their belt. So, from that, I think that's also our job as handicappers to also decide, like, even if it is a prep, can the horse still win, right? Because he might be, on to bigger and better things, but coming back in this spot, we've talked about plenty of times as far as the Derby, the way it's set up. Our friend Two Phils ran the best race.
Yep, he did.
I can say that in this house. Ran that fast pace, which did assist Mage. Give the winner credit where it's deserved. He ran a very good race as well, but was aided by the right ride, by the setup, by the pace that day. And then in the Preakness, wasn't the most ideal spot, just in terms of the way the race set up for him, as well as just the timing coming back in 2 weeks. Maybe they were a little bit forced to run in there coming off the Derby win. So I think he still has to prove it. I think there's still some hurdles.
Here's the question that I have for you. Can you really, if your name's not Flightline or Secretariat, if you look way back or something like that, can you really say $1 million race is a prep? Or is that an excuse in case the horse doesn't run well? How did you take that when you saw that quote come out?
I kind of take all the quotes, trainer, owners, etc., with a grain of salt, even some owners here, because again, like I said, we're handicappers. That's our job to tell, to decide all that. And coming back off a slight freshening, obviously they want to point to bigger and better things. But you're right. I mean, with that much money on the line, this is still a prestigious race, and winning the Haskell is a big deal. And I think he'll turn in a good effort, but overall, I still think he has some things to prove.
To me, if you're 5 for 5 going into the race, you can say it's a prep. When you're 2 for 5, you can say it's $1 million race that you're going out there against some tough company. We'll see what Mage does in the Haskell. Now, the 8 Arabian Knight is the horse that is the morning line favorite in here. This one, the 5-2 favorite from the barn of trainer Bob Baffert. Arabian Knight, 2 starts, both of them very impressive victories, but this is a horse that's been away since January, so you definitely know that there are some issues abound for the horse not getting back to the racetrack until now. Do you think this horse does go favorite in this race?
Yeah, I do. I do think he does. Off those speed figures, the fact that he has that early speed, he could be the controlling speed in here. You asked me yesterday, what does it take to earn an Optics A grade? Well, Arabian Knight did earn an A- in his debut. Was able to make that easy lead, but it was just so much due to him having that natural gate speed, where he just ran the field off their feet. And he looks to do the same in here. There's some horses that want to be on or near the lead, but he's quicker. And I've watched his return works out at Santa Anita, and he looks strong. And his Southwest was also very dominant. That race turned out to be pretty productive with some horses running back. And at that time, just kind of from a visual standpoint, at the time of the Southwest, it was announced pretty soon after that they would need some time. He had a slight injury pop up. He looked to me like he was going to lead the crop. Yeah. Like he was going to be the horse that was going to be favored going into the Derby. So obviously those little setbacks, but he looks on track, and I think he just has an edge in here.
Well, and here's the thing. For a horse that was based in Southern California, you're Kentucky bred, so they went to Keeneland for the debut. That's a $150,000 race, and they just completely blew that field out of the water, winning by 7 lengths. Then, like you said, you come back in the Southwest, another impressive performance here. I'm with you. I think this is a horse that will go favorite, and I think it's the horse that should go favorite here. Now, the question that's going to arise is what the pace scenario is going to be, because I think you're right. I think Arabian Knight has the potential to be loose and lonely on the lead, but the 7 Extra Anejo is the horse that might be able to get a good trip from just off the pace. I don't know if the horse will go off as short as 5 to 1. I think it might trickle up a little bit because you have Tapit Trice. You have Mage in that here.
Go Rocket Ride, too.
Right.
Yeah.
I think this is a horse that maybe sits somewhere between 6 and 8 to 1 in this spot.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in terms of the trip, if anybody tries to run with Arabian Knight, they're going to be in trouble.
Right.
And then they're going to fade. And so I don't know. Extra Anejo has that early speed. He's not quick enough to run with Arabian Knight, so he could just sit there and stalk and just wait. I don't know if he has enough kick to get to Arabian Knight, but that might just be enough in terms of the minors. And when you're looking at a race like this and you're saying, okay, the favorite is legitimate for, X, Y, and Z, and that's the horse, you don't really want to be looking at the horses that are going to be the second and third choice, right? Because you're trying to find somewhere in there, and I think that's kind of a creative idea that should be value.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it is a horse that has a little bit of value. Now, I know you put some time into analyzing this entire race on the website, so when you cover some of these other horses underneath, you look at some horses like you mentioned, Go Rocket Ride, a horse like Salute the Stars. These are horses that might be overlooked a little bit. The races have been okay. Are they up to par with some of the others in the field? Yeah,
I think this is a really competitive group. Salute the Stars, he won that most recent start, the Pegasus Stakes, which is kind of a jumping off point into this race, still a lightly race type that's holding his form, maybe even showing a little bit of improvement race to race. Howgreatisnate comes out of that race where he was probably regressed a little bit. He was coming off a win where he was running a top effort off a slight freshening, so I could see Howgreatisnate rebound. As far as Go Rocket Ride, I think he's going to get a lot of attention here for the connections and a horse that's really done nothing really wrong.
Right.
He's got 2 wins and a place, but a lot of his trips have been so favorable. His debut race, maybe not the strongest field. He was flow aided in the San Felipe to finish second, had a perfect trip in the Affirmed. So he's going to be class tested in here, and again, one that's probably going to be a short price that if some of these others drift away, even Awesome Strong. I don't know how good this horse is, but number-wise, he's not far off some of these other horses, and it seems like this would be the time that he's going to run a top effort, that he's second off the layoff, stretching back out in distance.
Yeah, and then you have Tapit Trice.
Yeah.
The 5 horse here. Tapit Trice, 3 to 1. I'm curious too. I mean, I don't know. When I make a line, okay, if my first, second, and third choice, I'm going to have a distinct first, second, and third choice. So you see 5 to 2 on Arabian Knight, 3 to 1 Mage, 3 to 1 Tapit Trice. I'm curious to see. I think Mage could be a little bit shorter price, although Tapit Trice did run a pretty good race in the Belmont too.
He did. He did run a good race in there, and that was kind of the race that everybody was kind of saying, once he gets to the Belmont, he's going to be that Belmont horse. And he ran fine. Nobody was beating Archangela. He was just much the best that day. And Tapit Trice, maybe he's better going a little bit shorter, to be honest. That's where he's had a little bit more success, even though he kind of is that like long lumbering type, but he's actually been better a little bit shorter. I also just think they're still trying to figure out like how good is this horse and what does he want to do as well. Yeah, so we'll be curious to see how things unfold, but that's a really good feature, the $1 million Haskell, the prep for Mage, race number 12 at Monmouth on Saturday. All right, here at Hawthorne today, again, overcast skies. We do have a fast main track, though. We do have a firm turf course today. 4 races on the turf today. The rail is all the way in at lane 0, 0 feet in. We're going to move it out 20 feet for Sunday, but with the 4 races, we kick things off in race number 1 on the turf, 1 mile on the firm turf course. Optional claimant allowance company, $62.50. Now you say, okay, a field of 5 here, it's a big purse, but you know what? This is also a prep for the Haskell Stakes, which is coming up a little bit later on the meet. So you need these horses to get that start. It's a good competitive bunch. Right now you look at She Can't Sing sitting as the 6 to 5 favorite. I think it's even more competitive than just that for this one for a short price favorite. Absolutely. I mean, you could really kind of make a case for a lot of the horses in this field. And as far as She Can't Sing, she's run races that would make her that strong contender, and probably why you're seeing 6 to 5 on the board. But she also has to get back to a top effort. She could rebound a little bit out of the Canterbury race in her most recent start, had those repetitive layoff lines, and in that Canterbury race she was inside a little bit scared, so not ideal that day. But number-wise, she's not that much higher than some of the others in here, and that could have more upside. I thought her stablemate, who right now is sitting at 8 to 1, number 1 Cathan, fits in here as well. I mean, the pace is kind of a tricky read, but Cat Attack has a lot of early speed. She keep the pace honest. Same thing with Wave of Goodness. So Cathan should have plenty of pace to run at, and she's just been a little bit unlucky getting into the race with a lot of the races coming off the turf. Yeah, and much like what we did yesterday, I'm going to run down to the turf course for race number 1 today, so I'll get an up-close look at them when we do get down there, and we may focus on some of these horses. But I'm curious to see, the turf did play very evenly for yesterday's card.
I'm thinking Cat Attack probably is committed to the front. The question is if the horse can clear. If Cat Attack can clear and repeat that last performance, it could be very tough going this mile distance, but I'll be curious to see once I get down there just how the horses look on the track. But you're right, it's a race where you can search around, try to find a little bit of value, because there's a lot of horses that are very evenly matched here for race number 1. All right, race number 2 today. We're going 1 mile and 70 yards in the second. Starts the 50-cent early pick 4. Starter optional company in here, 15,000 is the tag. Looks like Gianna's Gift and Amitas are the 2 horses in for the 15,000. With this mile 70 distance, Emily, I think Amitas is a horse that could be a little bit of a factor coming off a turf stride. And I like Ronan here actually going around 2 turns as well. What do you think of these 2?
Those are the 2 that I landed on as well. Tried to get a little bit creative outside of Gianna's Gift. She's probably going to be the favorite in here, but coming off the layoff, coming back in for the tag. Contreras running here where a lot of the string is at Horseshoe Indianapolis. There was just some concerns. And then also in terms of pace with Free Love in here, could get a little bit cooked. So Amitas and Ronan, who has some buried form, I preferred those 2 in here.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, the one thing that always scares me with Ronan is just the 1 win over the racetrack, 14 runner-up efforts, but I think you get the right setup. And like you mentioned, Gianna's Gift was claimed for 30. Now 4 starts later, the horse is in for the $15,000 price tag. But Cipriano Contreras is a very good trainer as well. So see how things unfold for that one in race number 2. Third race on the card, Scratch the 6. That's a weekend pass. We go 1 mile and 70 yards. Starts the pick 6 wager from this field of 5. Emily, we're kind of thinking the same way here, and especially just looking at the short field, going 2 turns. Seems like Cougar could be very tough on the front end.
She could be. I had a really hard time with this race because at first I looked at the plot and I was like, oh, Cougar's going to be clear. She ran against Males last out. She makes sense. And then you're like, oh, she's going to be class tested in here. Maybe this race is a little bit trickier, but then kind of everybody has that same kind of class test. So maybe it comes down to just form and having that early speed. But yeah, I found it really tough, and I'd say the one thing that helps me out is I don't have to pick weekend pass. So that. And the assistant gave me a hard time in the parking lot as I was leaving the other day. He goes, "You always pick weekend pass," and I go, "I know." And she's back in again. She's going to burn me once again. So at least
she always comes running on, and she's always just a little bit too late.
Yeah.
But Cougars, I think this is a horse that's so much better around 2 turns. This owner-trainer combination won the finale on the turf yesterday with Storm's Reflection. So I think Cougar gets away in good order, goes out there and has the potential to wire the field in race number 3. 4th race on the card, back to the turf. This is a nice turf sprint. 5.5 furlongs on the firm turf course. Optional claiming allowance company here. Field of 8 lines. I'll put Corey Orm on the 3. That is Secret Operation. Emily, Wesley Ward has a couple that were here before in Stars on Fire and No K Never. I think No K Never should improve. I didn't really like the trip in that last out. I think the horse could actually be a little bit better today.
I think so too. I gave her the edge over stablemate number 2, Stars on Fire. Those 2 coming out of that common race. I think there's a little bit more intent today with No K Never, bringing in the apprentice rider Walter Rodriguez, the only mount on the card. So something that just suggests intent and has that early speed. Now there are others in here that can show early speed, so it's not going to be a layup for her. She's going to have to work for it, but of those 2, I gave her a bit of an edge. And again, I'm going to use a few more because I think she'll be short. I think there's a scenario where, you know, somebody could come pick up the pieces. You mentioned the turf course played favorably and horses were making up ground on it. Laura Min kind of seems like the more obvious closer in there. And I've been chasing number 7, Sunset Painter. Her debut at Golden Gate Fields really impressed me. She was privately purchased out of that. I didn't think she was in the right spots at Oaklawn Park, where she was running longer. She's better around 1 turn. She's got some buried forms, some sneaky trips. And I think this could be a good spot for her as well.
And I think the horse, will be overlooked a little bit just with some of the connections. Wilma Mankiller, you know, is going to take action. Lure him in, 2 from the barn and Wesley Ward. So you're right, Sunset Painter could possibly sneak away at a little bit of a price there in race number 4. 5th race, Hurt by Scratches today. No superfecta wager in Scratch the 2, Come On Lady, and the 4 in Napa Bit. The 6 Love You Like Crazy is probably going to be 1 to 5 in this spot. The question is, can Freedom Attack or any of the others upset this one? I don't know. Sometimes maybe you just take the free spot and move on, but this is going to be a very short price favorite.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes it's like, I feel like she's kind of due for that because she's run so well and she's just run into horses that just happen to be better on the day, and it's just no fault of her own. She's running a race and they're just better. And today she's kind of, I'm the better horse, come beat me. And you know, Come On Lady was kind of the one that you're like, this is a new face, maybe she could be the threat, but with her out, you kind of know what you're going to get from some of the others. And it's Love You Like Crazy's race to win/lose.
Yeah, and then I'd Come On Lady in the mix as well, but I'm with you. I Love You Like Crazy. It's going to be a short price favorite, like I said. If you can save some money there and try to find some prices later on the sequence, I think that's the route to go.
Or earlier, because it
or
closes
early,
out the pick
with
5.
the pick 3s or close out the pick 5. You're right there. Race number 6, also on the turf, 5.5 furlongs. Allowance runners in the spot. Scratch the 5, Frosted a Clear, and the 6, Bally Baby. Field of 7 lines up in here. I like when we agree on a 6-to-1 shot, and that's what we're doing with Belperrin, a horse that clearly wants the turf because they scratched when the race was taken off last week.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll get that price. Maybe with the scratches it'll come down a little bit, but she just has, her numbers are some of the strongest in here. So I don't know, people that play speed figures,
right,
maybe they're going to gravitate in that direction. But I think she makes a lot of sense in here. You mentioned the intent. All around connections kind of seem like she's well met. Corey Arm has been named in a couple of those scratches and reappears here. So she makes a lot of sense. And again, from a speed figure standpoint, could be tough running back to those numbers.
I mean, Orm definitely got along nicely with her when they had that victory back at Turfway Park. Corey was one of those 2 riders that was in that race, the route race yesterday, where they were battling for third, and he was battling all the way to the wire on that horse. That was for Steve Manley with silver quarters as well. But I think Belperrin does get a good trip from the inside. I'm curious to see, because Peach Cobbler can show a little bit of speed, but I think Heavenly Scent on the outside probably sends as well. This one might be able to tuck in right behind and get that good trip. So we'll see if the horse can kind of save that ground the whole way too.
Yeah, and then the other one, Tar Heel Girl, worth a mention. Mojica was aboard Madeline Bell, who's going to come back in here. Madeline Bell dominated maidens, but this is going to be a step up as she takes on winners. And Tar Heel Girl has some varied form as well. All
right, race number 7, 6250 optional claimant allowance company. They go 3/4, a big scratch. Take out the 2, Fit to Fly, who was probably going to be the favorite in this spot. Field of 5 to line up. Fit to Fly was also going to supply some pace in this race, but really, aside from the horse you had on top, everybody else can show some speed. Is that the reason that you gave a little bit of a look to Star Nation?
Yeah, well, I thought the pace scenario set up for Star Nation and has some varied form in there. All of her races have kind of been sneaky good, and I still think there's plenty of pace for Star Nation, so I'm not against her. The scratch, obviously, will take out some pace, but looking at Optics plot, there's kind of a bunch around Quadrant 1 in that Quadrant 3 position that want to be on or near the lead, and Star Nation should still be able to get a trip.
Yeah, and Star Nation should come running at him late. We'll just see kind of how things unfold. Onasa was the horse that I went to. Tough Luck lost back on March the 9th. Came back, though, with a really impressive victory back on March the 26th. I'm just curious to see if this one can outkick some others to the front. If it can, he's a big, good-looking 3-year-old colt, so Onasa, a horse that I gave a look to in the 7th. Then in the finale, another really good turf race. 7.5 furlongs on the turf. It's $10,000 company, but it's a very competitive bunch in here. Jackpot High Five carryover, $154,567. Larry Ravelli has clear and convincing in this spot. The horse has tried to get in a couple of times, but races have been taken off the turf. I guess the big question is if they're going to be ready off an 11-month layoff.
Yeah, that can be a question. I wasn't that thrilled about the placement that they had clear and convincing in, because they were in sprints, actually, and I was really against it, because it's a horse that doesn't have a lot of speed in routes. I don't know where the horse is going to be sprinting, way off the pace, trying to make a run, but around the 7.5, seems like a better fit. Has had a little bit more conditioning since. And X-Prompt, another one that has been pretty unlucky with those races coming off the turf, waiting to get back on the turf. They've been sprinting as of late, but digging back through, there's actually races around 2 turns that fit just as well. So I think X-Prompt will probably be a little bit of a price in here.
And he's never missed a board in 3 starts at the distance. So he's a horse that definitely can figure. Fly Nightly is the one that I went to in here. Now this is a horse that battled every step of the way in that last out, prevailed by a half length at this $10,000 level. Shortens up a little bit in here. The question is if the horse is going to have company out front or not, and if the horse goes out there and shows that speed. It's a couple of the horses on the inside have the potential to show a little bit of speed as well, maybe even the 6 Blurt. So we'll see how things unfold. But that's how Emily and I see the 8 races here on the Thursday afternoon card. We're going to take a brief break. Emily's going to come back and analyze the first, and I am going to sprint down to the turf course, and I'll touch base with you after the post parade. Good luck.
Racing fans here at Hawthorne, we're 17 minutes away now, 16 away from the first race. First race starts the rolling daily doubles, rolling pick threes, the 57.